Hey, hello guys. Welcome back to IQCIVILS IAS Academy. A great coach transforms life. Today's topic is antibiotic resistance, antimicrobial resistance. Along with that, we will discuss some important topics from the current affairs which are related to antibiotic resistance. Myself, Dr. Sachin Kadam, faculty at IQCIVILS IAS Academy, Guwahati. This is about IQCIVILS IAS Academy. We are conducting many programs in collaboration with Government of Assam and Assam Administrative Staff College, which includes teaching or coaching for 60 meritorious students in 2021, candidates sponsored by Tea and X-Tree Garden Tribes 2019 to 20. Then we are also conducting many programs in collaboration with Assam government. Some examples are given here. This is about our Google rating. It is more than 4.9 star. That is very unique for an coaching institute for civil services. This is our panel of elite faculties from Sunil Jha sir to Nitin Kumar sir, या Sachin Kadam sir to Vikram Singh sir, या Anup Singh sir to रिजवान आलम सर, या आलोक कुमार सर टू योगेश शर्मा सर. सारे अपने अपने एरिया के बॉस है, अपने अपने एरिया के धुरंधर है. तो we are starting new batches for UPSC CSE examination and state services from 16th of August and 22nd August. So you can directly get in touch with our director Anuj Singh sir, our admissions manager Vishal Sharma and Anuradha Saikia, and you can get all the details related to IQCIVILS IAS Academy coaching and programs related to civil services and state services examination. So today's topic is antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. Now why we are discussing this topic? Reason is G7 की recently meeting हुई थी, and in that meeting health ministers from the group of 7 highly industrialized countries, so it is a group of highly industrialized countries, recently recognized antimicrobial resistance as a bigger threat to low and middle income countries, even though fighting it was a shared responsibility. तो remember G7 ग्रुप ने अपने recent मीटिंग में AMR एंटी माइक्रोबियल रेजिस्टेंस विच इज ऑल्सो नोन एज एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस को वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट थ्रेट टू लो एंड मिडल इनकम कंट्रीज के लिए कहा है. एंड दे सेड कि इट इज अ शेयर्ड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ डेवलप्ड एंड डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज टू फाइट antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. This is the G7 groups: United States, Canada, so 2 countries from North America, UK, France, Italy and Germany, 4 countries from Europe, and Japan, 1 country from Asia. So these are the most or highly industrialized countries in the world, and they recognized antimicrobial resistance as a bigger threat. What are the concerns? Why antimicrobial resistance is a bigger threat? Because more than 7 people die because of antimicrobial resistance or development of antimicrobial resistance every year. 7 lakh people, guys. It is a very big number. बहुत बड़ी बात है ये. You're getting me? आपके SARS CoV-2 से कम लोग मरे हैं लास्ट 2 ईयर में. उससे ज्यादा लोगों की डेथ किससे हुई है? एंटीमाइक्रोबियल रेजिस्टेंस. The toll can rise to as many as 10 million. That is 1 million is equal to 10 lakh. So 1 crore people can die because of antimicrobial resistance by 2050 if we do not do anything related to antimicrobial resistance or antibiotic resistance. And it will cost 3.8% of GDP or global GDP. That is means the cost of development of antimicrobial resistance in terms of human life loss and in terms of economic loss is unimaginable. It is very big. Now what proposals are given by G7? So G7 first identified one problem. The name of that problem is antimicrobial resistance. Then they proposed some provisions or some solutions to deal with antimicrobial resistance. Number 1, to establish new international integrated surveillance system, means they are saying कि all countries should come together and they should establish one system that will look after development of antimicrobial resistance across the world, across the different countries, so that we can come to know in which country, in which region a bacteria or a microorganism has developed antimicrobial resistance. So once we know about that particular strain of microorganism, we can deal with it in a proper way. Second, improve existing systems to monitor AMR and antibiotics use among humans, animals and plants and the effect on the environment. Now, first thing, remember, antimicrobial resistance is developed by microorganisms against the medicine that we use to kill them. Like antibacterial medicine is used to kill bacteria, so bacteria will develop resistance and against antibiotics. Then antiviral medicine is used to treat viral infections. The virus will develop resistance against antiviral medicine. Then antifungal medicine is used to treat fungus or fungal infection. So fungus will develop resistance against antifungal medicine. So all these terms are included in antimicrobial resistance. So G7 says we need to monitor development of antimicrobial resistance as well as we need to monitor use of antibiotics not only in human but in animals and plants as well, and what impact they are having on the environment. We need to study that, we need to understand that, we need to monitor that. So develop a surveillance system, then monitor the development of antimicrobial resistance. Third, enhance the scientific basis to inform risk assessment and identify opportunities for mitigation. So first, surveillance system, second, monitoring, and third, now study the development of antimicrobial resistance scientifically. Okay, because science only can give you answer to different problems. Number 4, to promote prudent and appropriate use of antimicrobials through 2023 by defining national measurable targets on AMR in line with domestic authorities, including antibiotic usage in human health. So they are basically saying that every country should come up with some plan, with some targets to ensure that use of antibiotics in their own country is done in a proper way, is done in an appropriate way, and is done whenever it is needed only. Means there should not be overuse of antibiotics, there should not be misuse of antibiotics in humans, plants and animals. And last, to prepare the upcoming report on infection prevention and control and present it at WHO summit in Berlin in October. So there are 5 proposals given by G7. Number 1, develop a surveillance system. Number 2, monitor the development of antimicrobial resistance and antibiotic resistance in human, animal and plant. Number 3, study the science behind the development of antimicrobial resistance and how we can deal with that antimicrobial resistance. Number 4, every country should come up with a proper plan for 2023 so that appropriate use of antimicrobials is done. And last, whole world should prepare a plan and present it to World Health Summit that is going to happen in October. So these are the proposals given by G7 countries. So this is the news. What was the news? Antimicrobial resistance is identified by G7 countries as a bigger threat to low and middle income countries. These are the G7 countries. And why they are concerned about antimicrobial resistance? Because lakhs of people die because of AMR, and if we ignore AMR now, then it can lead to death of crores of people by 2050, which is not far, within 30 years. So they gave some proposals. Now we will go to the basic. This is how we learn, right? आपको मेरा पैटर्न पता है. पहले मैं न्यूज में क्या है ये बता देता हूँ, और उस न्यूज में जो भी मेंशन किया है उससे रिलेटेड वी गो टू द स्टैटिक पोर्शन और बेसिक्स. नाउ व्हाट इज एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस? इट इज द, अब देखो, बायोटिक मीन्स लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म, राइट? Biotic means living organism and anti means something which is against living organisms. So any medicine that you use to kill or destroy living organisms, you can call them antibiotic. And these antibiotics are used against those living organisms which cause infection or disease to human, plant or animal. So if these living organisms develop resistance against these medicine, so we call that antibiotic resistance. Now who exactly causes disease to human, plant and animal? Most of the diseases to human, plant and animal are caused by microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses, parasites and even fungi, because they are all microscopic microorganisms. So sometimes we use the term antimicrobial. All the medicines that are used to kill bacteria, virus, fungi and parasite are known as antimicrobials, and if these microorganisms develop resistance against these medicines, so we call them antimicrobial resistance or AMR, or you can also call that antibiotic resistance. Clear? So it is the ability of a microorganism like bacteria, virus and some parasites including fungi to stop an antimicrobial, such as antibiotics are used against bacteria, antiviral are used against viruses, anti-malarial are used against malaria parasite and antifungal are used against fungi from working against it. So if a virus, bacteria, parasite or fungi develop resistance against antibiotic, antiviral, antimalarial and antifungal, that is known as antibiotic resistance. Is that clear? So who causes diseases in human, plant and animal? Disease can be caused by bacteria, so we use antibiotics. Disease can be caused by virus, so we use antiviral. Disease can be caused by fungi, we use antifungal. Disease can be caused by parasite, so we use antiparasitic medicines such as antimalarials. And if these microorganisms develop resistance against these antimicrobials, so we call that antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. Got it? Yes. As a result, standard treatments become ineffective, infections persist and may spread to others. तो इससे क्या होगा? अब देखो, पर्सन ए है, इसे एक इन्फेक्शन हुआ, सपोज टीबी हुआ, बट ये टीबी जिस बैक्टीरिया से हुआ है, दैट बैक्टीरिया हैज डेवलप्ड रेजिस्टेंस अगेंस्ट द मेडिसिन यूज्ड फॉर टू किल दैट बैक्टीरिया. सो अगर पर्सन ए को टीबी हो गया है, नाउ पर्सन ए विल डाई बिकॉज ऑफ टीबी, क्योंकि टीबी के अगेंस्ट हमारे पास जो मेडिसिन अवेलेबल है, दे उनके अगेंस्ट दिस बैक्टीरिया हैज डेवलप्ड रेजिस्टेंस. So now you cannot kill that bacteria, means you cannot treat TB. It's that simple. So what is antibiotic or antimicrobial medicines used to kill bacteria, virus, fungi or parasite? What is antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance? When these bacteria, virus, parasite and fungi develop resistance against these antimicrobials or antibiotics, we call that antibiotic resistance. So इससे होगा क्या? Now if some bacteria or if these microorganisms develop resistance against these medicines, so now we cannot treat these simple diseases like TB and all. So as a result, standard treatment become ineffective, infections persist and may spread to others. अब मुझे बताओ, when there is no treatment for a particular disease, वो ज़्यादा बड़ा problem है, या there is a treatment for a particular disease but microorganisms developed resistance against that treatment or against that medicine, वो ज़्यादा problem है, ये बड़ा problem है. Why? Because अब क्या होगा ना, if these bacteria, viruses and parasites and fungi develop resistance against antibiotics or antimicrobials, now we cannot treat simple diseases and people will start dying because of simple diseases. ये बड़े डिसीज लाने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, सार्स, कैंसर, HIV, नो नीड. People will start dying because of TB, people will start dying because of simple typhoid, diarrhea, dysentery, malaria, dengue. There are so many diseases against which we have developed treatment, but all these treatment regimen will become ineffective, useless if these microorganisms develop antibiotic resistance. Just imagine the scenario on earth. There is no treatment for a disease, even a simple disease. People will die in lakhs and crores. So antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance is a bigger threat than any other disease. SARS-CoV-2 is not a big deal. Cancer is not a big deal. HIV is not a big deal. But antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance is a big deal. So what are the causes of antibiotic resistance? Now I hope you got it. What is antibiotic resistance? ये आपको clear हुआ. Now what leads to the development of antibiotic resistance? So antibiotic resistance happens when bacteria, virus, parasite or fungi change and become resistant to the antibiotics used to treat the infection they cause. अब ये कैसे होता है? Number one, over prescribing of antibiotics. This is the mistake done by the doctors. क्योंकि प्रॉब्लम क्या है ना, हम उन्हीं डॉक्टर को अच्छा कहते हैं if you go to the doctor and in a single visit if your disease get cured, so you say कि that doctor was really good because in a single dose I got the disease cleared. But that is a problem. There is a rule, there is a regimen, there is a treatment paradigm that should be followed by the doctor. So doctors over prescribe antibiotics, and because of overuse of antibiotics or over prescribing of antibiotics by doctor, these microorganisms develop resistance against these medicines, and that leads to the development of antimicrobial resistance or antibiotic resistance. Second, patients not finishing their treatment. Again, this is a very big problem. डॉक्टर ने 5 दिन का डोज लिख कर दिया एंड आप मेडिकल पे जाते हो एंड यू आस्क द शॉप ओनर कि मुझे 3 दिन की ही गोलियां दो. अरे भाई साहब, वो डॉक्टर पागल नहीं है ना, उसने आपको 5 दिन की गोलियां दी है बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट should be done. That is how treatment is done, particularly in antibiotic. So if doctor gives you a dose of 5 days for antibiotics, so you have to take antibiotics for whole 5 days. Even if you start feeling better on 3rd day, do not stop taking antibiotics. You are feeling better because that antibiotic is reducing the population of that microorganism. That doesn't mean कि that microorganism is completely destroyed. And if you stop using antibiotics in the middle, तो कुछ microorganism बच जाएंगे. They will get exposed to a low dose of antibiotics, and now they will develop antibiotic resistance. So at least complete the treatment of antibiotics. पूरा dose लेना चाहिए. Okay. Third, overuse of antibiotics in livestock and fish farming. Now I will tell you simple. There is one farmer and he has a poultry farm. Fine. So in that poultry farm, chicken is present, chicken bird is present, right? So if some disease infects the chickens, so the chickens will die, and that lead to the financial loss of that farmer. So farmer क्या करता है, चिकन को डिसीज ना हो इसलिए even if that chicken is not infected, farmer add antibiotics into the feed of that chicken to prevent infection in that chicken. But while doing that, you are not using antibiotics to treat disease. You are using antibiotics to prevent disease. Antibiotics are not made to prevent disease. For that we have vaccines. Antibiotics are used when you catch infection, and then for treatment we use antibiotic. But if you give antibiotic before infection, तो obvious है कि these antibiotics will remain in the body of that chicken, and when that chicken gets infection, so these bacteria or microorganisms will get exposed to that particular antibiotics, and because of exposure, which is not enough to kill them. Now there is an antibiotic in the body of chicken, but that is not enough to kill microorganisms. So these microorganisms will develop resistance against that antibiotic. So overuse of antibiotics in livestock and fish farming, it is one of the major cause for the development of antibiotic resistance. Number 4, Poor infection control in hospitals and clinics. Now for your information, every government or private hospital and clinic, it is like it is a marketplace for the different infection. There are so many bacteria and viruses that are present on the surface of the hospital and clinics, in the air of the hospitals and clinics. So these bacteria and these viruses will get exposed to different chemicals present in the hospital and clinic, and most of the chemicals present in the hospital and clinics are antibiotics, antiviral, antifungal, antiseptic. So these bacteria, if we do not kill these microorganisms that are present in the on the surfaces or air in the hospital and clinic, they will get exposed to the poor dose of antibiotics, and that will help them to develop resistance against these antibiotics. See, every microorganism develop antimicrobial resistance only if that microorganism gets exposed to the medicine, but that medicine is not enough to kill that microorganism. So that microorganism survives the less or small dose of that medicine, and that's why that microorganism develops resistance. The fifth reason for the development of antimicrobial resistance or antibiotic resistance: lack of hygiene and poor sanitation. If you are not good at personal hygiene, if you are not keeping yourself clean, so obviously there are so many bacteria and viruses in the air, in the surfaces, so they will enter into your body, and then you will do this, or doctor will do this, and that will lead to the development of antibiotic resistance. And last, see, already scientists and researchers developed so many antibiotics, so now new antibiotics or development of new antibiotics is not happening at large scale. People are investing more in the development of vaccines and less in the development of antibiotics. So lack of new antibiotics being developed. So these are some reasons for the development of antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance, but the major reasons are this, this, and this. These are the three main and major reasons for the development of antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. You are getting me? Is that clear to everyone? Should we go ahead? Yes. Now you know what is antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. What are the causes for the development of antibiotic resistance? Now why antimicrobial resistance a silent threat to the future? मैं तो ये कहता हूँ क्यों इसे silent threat क्यों कहते हैं? Because today we are not feeling कि antimicrobial resistance is a big issue. So we are, even one of the major reason is टेकिंग एंटीबायोटिक्स विदाउट प्रिस्क्रिप्शन. हमें कोई डिसीज हुआ ना, हम मेडिकल शॉप ओनर के पास जाते हैं और बोलते भैया मुझे ना फीवर आ रहा है तो प्लीज गिव मी सम मेडिसिन. तो दैट मेडिकल शॉप ओनर गिव्स यू सम एंटीबायोटिक्स एंड सम antipyretic, means medicine that will reduce your temperature. So when a medical shop owner giving antibiotics, that person don't know कि what is the right dose of antibiotics, तो वो ऐसे ही दे देता है, and that is a problem, and that can lead to the development of antimicrobial resistance or antibiotic resistance. Now why antimicrobial resistance is a silent threat of the future? Antibiotics have saved millions of lives till date, and that is reality. Unfortunately, they are now becoming ineffective as many infectious diseases have ceased to respond to antibiotics. Why? Because microorganisms causing these diseases have developed antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. Even though antimicrobial resistance is a natural process, the misuse of antibiotics in humans and animals is accelerating the process. So it is natural that bacteria will develop antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance, but that is a slow process if it is happening naturally. But when we are misusing antibiotics, we are overusing antibiotic, we are taking antibiotics without prescription, so obviously it will speed up this process, and that is what is happening. A large number of infections, remember tuberculosis में सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस का. A large number of infections such as tuberculosis, pneumonia and gonorrhea, it is a sexually transmitted disease. We call this STD, sexually transmitted disease, are becoming very difficult to treat since the antibiotics used for their treatment are becoming less effective. So there are already few diseases in which antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance has been developed by some living microorganisms, and the biggest example is tuberculosis or TB. Okay, now why is antimicrobial resistance a silent threat of the future? पहला क्या पता चला आपको कि already there are some diseases in which antimicrobial resistance has developed and it is becoming difficult to treat them. दूसरा, globally, use of antibiotics in animals is expected to increase by 67% by 2030 from 2010 levels. The resistance to antibiotics in germs is a man-made disaster. Very important. Very important. And remember, as the use of antibiotics increases, obviously the possibility of developing antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance will also increase. That's why it is a silent threat to the future. Irresponsible use of antibiotics is rampant in human health, animal health, fisheries and agriculture. These are the main reasons for the development of antibiotic resistance. Then, complex surgeries such as organ transplantation and cardiac bypass might become difficult to undertake because of untreatable infectious complications that may result post-surgery. अब देखो, when we do organ transplantation or when we do cardiac bypass surgery, तो obviously we are opening the human body, है ना? और जब आप ह्यूमन बॉडी को ओपन कर रहे हो तो ह्यूमन बॉडी विल बी एक्सपोज्ड टू different type of infections. Though operation theater is completely sterile, but still even a small single bacteria if left in the air and if that bacteria lands in the body of that person, so it will cause complex complications, post surgery complications. So to prevent post surgery complication, different antibiotics are given to that patient. So these surgeries will become difficult if microorganisms develop antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. Clear? That's why antimicrobial resistance is a silent threat. Why it is a silent threat? Because number one, we are already facing problems in the treatment of TB, pneumonia and gonorrhea. The use of antibiotic is going to increase by 67% in the future, and if this resistance develops, so we cannot use them. Then complex surgeries will become a problem or will become impossible if antimicrobial resistance develop. In reasons की वजह से antimicrobial resistance is a silent threat of the future. Now see, there are another reasons also for the development of antibiotic resistance. One of them is pharmaceutical industry. Now see, in Hyderabad there is one pharmaceutical industry located in Hyderabad. Now this pharmaceutical industry will develop antibiotics, means this pharmaceutical industry will obviously use some chemicals to produce antibiotics, and in the west of this industry, in the pharmaceutical west, obviously some amount of antibiotics will be present. This pharmaceutical waste, if released into the river without treatment, so animals living in the aquatic ecosystem such as fish or bacteria or virus or fungi or parasite, they will get exposed to these antibiotics. But the dose of these antibiotics in the pharmaceutical waste is not enough to kill bacteria, virus, fungi or parasite in that water body. So they will get exposed but they will not get killed, and if they are not killed, they will develop resistance against that particular antibiotic, and that way antibiotic resistance will develop. Clear? Then this contaminated water or contamination of water, wildlife and field will happen because of antibiotics. Then transmission between animal भी होगा, ये मैंने आपको already explain किया है, and that will get transmitted to humans. तो देखो, pharmaceutical industry will release pharmaceutical waste. That's because of that waste, water, wildlife and fields will become contaminated with antibiotics. These antibiotics will enter into chicken, pig or animals, and these animals will be eaten by humans. So these antibiotics will enter into human body and once these antibiotics enter into human body, these antibiotics can lead to the development of resistance, because human body will get infected with bacteria, virus and fungi. Animals will get infected with bacteria, virus and fungi, and they will develop resistance because these animals and humans have traces of antibiotics. Okay, so transmission from person to person and between people and pets, then transmission from agricultural land, vegetables and water to people. So see, pharmaceutical industry से जो भी antibiotic release हुए, they can enter into the environment, into the animal, into the humans and into the food, and that will lead to the development of antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. Okay, so this is about antibiotic और antimicrobial resistance. हाँ, तो देखो हमने क्या क्या देखा कि G7 says that antimicrobial resistance is a bigger threat to low and middle income countries. These are G7 countries. Why it is a bigger threat? Because of AMR, 7 lakh people are dying every year, but this number can increase to 100 crore, 1 crore by 2050, as well as it will cost money. Then these are the proposals given by G7. Now what is antibiotic resistance? Resistance developed by bacteria, viruses, parasites or fungi against antibiotics or antimicrobials. Why it develops? Because of overprescribing, because of patient not finishing the treatment, because of overuse of antibiotic, because of misuse of antibiotic, because of poor infection practices in hospital and clinic, because of lack of hygiene and poor sanitation, because of lack of new antibiotic development, because of release of pharmaceutical waste into the nature without treatment. All these are the reasons for the development of antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance. Now why antimicrobial resistance is a silent threat? Because already there are some diseases which cannot be treated with antibiotics because microorganisms have developed antibiotic resistance. Then these antibiotics resistance, antimicrobial resistance will lead to the surgeries cannot be done, because of antimicrobial resistance development we cannot do complex surgeries, as after surgeries we need to prescribe antibiotics or antimicrobials which will be ineffective because of the development of antimicrobial resistance. As well as with every in future, with every year, the use of antibiotics is going to increase in animals as well as in humans, and if we keep increasing the use, or if we keep using more and more antibiotics, obviously that will lead to the problem. That's why antimicrobial resistance is a silent threat. अब देखो ये जो antibiotic resistance या antimicrobial resistance, this problem first came into our eyes when bacteria that causes TB. Remember, TB is caused by a bacteria, and the name of that bacteria is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. That is the name of bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And this bacteria has developed resistance against many antibiotics that are used to treat TB. इसलिए TB के ना there are many variants of TB. There is one variant of TB that these bacteria do not have resistance against any medicine or any drug that is used against TB. Then there is one variant of bacteria called monoresistant. These bacteria are resistant to any one TB treatment drug, means they developed resistance only against one drug. Polyresistant TB में these bacteria has developed resistance against at least 2 drugs that are used against TB, जैसे कि लेकिन आइसोनियासिड और लिफेम्पिसिन के अगेंस्ट इन्होंने रेजिस्टेंस डेवलप नहीं किया. Then multi-drug resistant TB, we call this MDR TB. Resistance to at least isoniazid and rifampicin, the two best first-line TB treatment drug. So polyresistant TB or polyresistance bacteria, they develop resistance against 2 drugs but not against isoniazid and rifampicin. And multi-drug resistant TB bacteria develop resistance against isoniazid and rifampicin, and these 2 drugs are very important and very crucial in the treatment of TB. Then extensively drug resistance TB, these bacteria developed resistance to isoniazid, rifampicin, plus resistance to any fluoroquinolone and at least one of the three injectable second line drugs like amikacin, kanamycin and capromycin. So this XDR-TB developed resistance against 2 plus 1 plus 1 against 4 drugs. So we cannot treat this TB. This bacteria, MDR-TB bacteria, developed resistance against two drugs called isoniazid and rifampicin. Polyresistance bacteria also developed resistance against two drugs but not isoniazid and rifampicin. Monoresistance bacteria has developed resistance against only one drug that is used to treat TB, and non-resistant TB bacteria do not have resistance against any drug that is used in the treatment of TB. So TB was the first disease, or Mycobacterium tuberculosis was the first bacteria that developed resistance against different drugs that are used to treat TB. और यहीं से फिर ये एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस या एंटीमाइक्रोबियल रेजिस्टेंस की बात चलने लगी. क्लियर? So TB can be monoresistant, TB can be polyresistant, TB can be multi-drug resistance or MDR, or TB can be extensively drug resistance or XDR. That is what we call TB. Clear? So these are different variants or different types of bacteria in TB which developed antibiotic resistance. So to deal with the antimicrobial resistance, what efforts India is taking? So first, India launched National Program on Antimicrobial Containment in 2012. Then India launched National Action Plan on AMR in 2017, and India also launched AMR Surveillance and Research Network in 2013. So yes, in India we already started taking efforts to deal with antimicrobial resistance. Okay, so tuberculosis, MDR-TB and National TB Elimination Program. I already explained you different variants of TB, right? So this is about the tuberculosis. We will discuss about TB some other day in detail. अभी आप बस हमने जो डिस्कस किया उतना याद रखो. So TB treatment, अब देखो, because there are resistant, because there are some bacteria of TB that are monoresistant, there are some bacteria of TB that are polyresistant, there are some bacteria of TB which are MDR, and there are some bacteria which are XDR. That's why we have developed a different TB treatment regimen for every bacteria. So normally the TB treatment is a course of 6 months. अगर आपको TB हो जाए तो मिनिमम आपको 6 मंथ तक ट्रीटमेंट लेना पड़ता है, दो फेज में. फर्स्ट फेज it is known as intensive phase and it lasts for 4 months, and second phase it is known as continuous phase and it lasts for 4 months. So 4 plus 2 6 month के लिए ये TB की ट्रीटमेंट दी जाती है. These are the drugs that are used to treat TB: isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, ethambutol. Now you need not to remember these names, just remember these two names because these two drugs are very important and very crucial in the treatment of TB. Okay, so this is about MDR TB, this is about XDR TB. I already explained you them. What are the causes of multi-drug resistant TB? Number one, mismanagement of treatment, and number two, person to person transmission. मतलब पर्सन ए को आपने टीबी की ट्रीटमेंट दी बट उस पर्सन ए ने ट्रीटमेंट ठीक से नहीं ली, तो इसकी वजह से उसमें ड्रग रेजिस्टेंस डेवलप हुआ एंड द सेम बैक्टीरिया गेट ट्रांसमिटेड टू बी. नाउ टू पीपल हैव ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट बैक्टीरिया, सो दीज आर द कॉजेस फॉर मल्टी ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट टीबी. ओके, ट्रीटमेंट फॉर ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट टीबी, उसके लिए हम डॉट्स नाम की ट्रीटमेंट देते हैं. तो गोल टू एंड टीबी बाय 2025, दैट इज इंडियाज ड्रीम. इंडिया वांट टू एंड टीबी बाय 2025. ओके, सो नेशनल टीबी एलिमिनेशन प्रोग्राम वाज लॉन्च्ड इन 1962 और ये उसकी पूरी टाइमलाइन है. इट वाज लॉन्च्ड एज अ नेशनल टीबी प्रोग्राम और एनटीपी इन 1962. इन 1993 वी रीनेम्ड इट आरटी, revised national RNTCP, revised national TB control program. Then in 1997 we introduced a special treatment course for TB known as DOTS, DOTS. The long form of DOTS is डायरेक्टली ऑब्जर्व ट्रीटमेंट शॉर्ट कोर्स, मैं आपको इसकी स्टोरी अलग से बता देता हूँ, ठीक है। So this is all about the treatment of TB. India wants to eliminate TB by 2022-2025 by with the help of RMTCP, which was launched in 1993. ओके अब मैं ज़रा आपको टीबी की एक अलग स्टोरी बताता हूँ, बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी है टीबी की, ठीक है, बड़ी ही इंटरेस्टिंग टीबी है। वाई वी नीड टू इंट्रोड्यूस द न्यू ट्रीटमेंट शॉर्ट कोर्स ऑफ टीबी कॉल्ड, जिसे हम कहते हैं डॉट्स। तो मैं पहले से बता देता हूँ आपको, जस्ट गिव मी अ सेकेंड। सी the first, see, now you know what is antibiotic resistance, what is antimicrobial resistance. How we came to know about antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance? So the first bacteria that developed antibiotic resistance was Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that causes tuberculosis. Okay. So we came across different people that have drug resistant TB. Okay, so TB can be mono-resistant, TB can be poly-resistant, TB can be multi-drug resistant, or TB can be extensively drug resistance. Okay, so why it happened कि TB में ही drug resistance bacteria develop हुई, उसका reason है TB में जो आप medicine देते हो ना, these medicines are like they have many side effects. तो अगर पर्सन ए को आप टीबी की ट्रीटमेंट दे रहे हो तो it causes many other problems to that person. One of the cause is उसकी यूरिन होने लगती है रेड, प्लस उसे ठीक से भूख नहीं लगती, मतलब उसका एपेटाइट डाउन हो जाता है बिकॉज ऑफ मेडिसिन, देन इरिटेशन होता है, देन यूरिन करते वक्त इन्फ्लेमेशन होता है, देर आर मेनी रीजन्स, मेनी प्रॉब्लम्स दैट आर कॉज्ड बाय द मेडिसिन वी आर यूजिंग टू ट्रीट टीबी। अब जब वो यूरिन करता है ना, वो यूरिन होता है रेड, दैट डजंट मीन कि उसके यूरिन में ब्लड आ रहा है। दिस रेड कलर ऑफ यूरिन इज बिकॉज ऑफ द ड्रग्स, बिकॉज ऑफ द मेडिसिन, लेकिन उस पेशेंट को लगता है कि ये दवाइयों की वजह से मुझे मेरे यूरिन में ब्लड आ रहा है, तो दैट पेशेंट स्टॉप्स टेकिंग ट्रीटमेंट। अब अगर आपने आधी अधूरी ट्रीटमेंट ली टीबी की, तो ऑब्वियसली द बैक्टीरिया दैट इज प्रेजेंट इन योर बॉडी दैट विल डेवलप रेजिस्टेंस, एंड दैट्स वाई टीबी में रेजिस्टेंस डेवलप हुआ। तो पहले मोनो रेजिस्टेंट हुआ, फिर पॉली रेजिस्टेंस हुआ, फिर एमडीआर हुआ। तो साइंटिस्ट ने और इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने ये सोचा कि व्हाई इट इज हैपनिंग विद टीबी, we are taking so much care not to stop the spread of TB, and with every year new variants of TB are developing. So जब उन्होंने देखा तो उन्हें दिखा कि patient stops taking medicine in the middle because these medicines cause many other health problems. So they introduced directly observed treatment short course, जिसे हम कहते हैं DOTS, डॉट्स। क्या कहते हैं इसको? डॉट्स। अब इसमें क्या होता है कि इफ़ यू आइडेंटिफाई एनी पर्सन विथ टीबी, पहली बात तो उसे पूरी ट्रीटमेंट मिलती है फ्री, दैट पर्सन नीड नॉट टू पे मनी फॉर द मेडिसिन। दूसरी बात, जो पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ है ना गवर्नमेंट का, वो खुद उस पेशेंट के घर पे जाता है और कहता है कि मेरे सामने ड्रग लो, डायरेक्टली ऑब्जर्व। So in DOTS, we or government employees administer medicine to every single TB patient in front of their own eyes. जी, और इससे इंश्योर किया जाता है कि दैट पेशेंट डू नॉट स्टॉप ट्रीटमेंट इन द मिडल, दैट्स वाई दैट इज नोन एज डॉट्स और डायरेक्टली ऑब्जर्व ट्रीटमेंट शॉर्ट कोर्स। तो रिमेंबर, नंबर वन, टीबी is a disease caused by bacteria. The name of that bacteria is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Second, TB is one of the diseases in which there are different antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance bacteria are present. Third, India want to eliminate TB by 2025. Fourth, India launched revised National TB Control Program or RNTCP to eliminate TB from India. And in India, a special treatment course is used to treat TB. The name of that course is DOTS. आपके स्टेट सर्विस के एग्जाम में ये आ सकता है. डॉट्स ट्रीटमेंट इज यूज टू ट्रीट टीबी. या आपके इसमें ये आ सकता है कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग स्टेट सर्विस में आप which of the following bacteria is responsible for TB. So the name of that bacteria is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. That's it. Okay. So now you know what is antibiotic resistance, what is antimicrobial resistance, in which disease particularly antibiotic or antimicrobial resistance develop. Okay. So that's it from my side guys. आज के लिए बस इतना ही. So before you leave this class, remember, if you want PDF of this class, you need to subscribe to our Telegram channel. This is IQCIVILS IAS Academy and we are starting new batches offline as well as online from 16th August and 22nd August. So it is my earnest request to everyone to register yourself and ensure your admission at IQCIVILS IAS Academy offline or online. Numbers are given below. So that's it from my side guys. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Take care. Sayonara. See you soon.